Hey everyone, this is Craig from Critical Mass Games. Today I'm going to be taking you through the build of the Imperator Mecha. This is a new kit that we're manufacturing on behalf of Robin Fidden, the creator of Gruntz. This kit will be available exclusively through the Critical Mass Games website at www.criticalmassgames.com. For more information on the Imperator Mecha and the Gruntz rule system, please visit Robin's site at www.gruntz.biz. On the left hand side here we have the hull section for the Imperator with the integrated missile launcher. We have the hips, we have the pistons for the rear of the legs, we have the shield for the left arm, the rotary cannon for the right arm, and the gun camera. We've got the arm sprue, left and right arms, and then the lower leg sprue. Okay, so I'm just going to take you through cleaning up the lower leg sprue. First I'm going to snip the sprue in half, just so I can work on each leg section. This first one I'm going to use the clippers just to clip the bottom off. Now this isn't as precise as using a razor saw, which you'll see shortly, but it is quite quick. With the second piece I'm going to use the razor saw. Now obviously these are just little model hobby saws. Now when I'm cutting with these I just tend to drag across the area rather than try and use it as an actual saw. It doesn't tend to work. Just keep slowly dragging it across the part that you're trying to cut, and eventually the blade will just completely cut through it. So the sprue's been removed with the razor saw, and then we've got the other leg piece with the clippers removal. Both these just need cleaning off with a file now. Okay, so moving on from the lower legs to the upper legs hips area, we're just going to start by removing the sprues. Just a few quick snips with the cutters, just to remove the thin runners. We're then going to move on to the central block. Now this area needs to be removed along this line shown with the pen. We're going to do this with the clippers, just taking out small pieces at a time, starting from the top of the sprue and then working down. So we'll start at the top, just a quick snip to remove that piece, and then we're essentially just going to nibble away at this until it's all been removed, a layer at a time. If you try and take it in one big chunk, then you may end up actually splitting the component that you need to keep. So just do a small piece at a time until it's all been removed. There you go, just being very slowly with the cutters there, just scraping off that last bit there. We'll then use a scalpel and a file just to finish that off completely so it's smooth and ready to accept the upper torso. Now moving on to the upper torso, again we're going to remove it on this line, just running around there. It's quite a thick block there, that's just to help the mould fill. Okay, the razor saw is probably the best one for this. I've actually used a combination here. I've just used the razor saw along the corners just to weaken the piece. And then after I've done that, I'll go in with the cutters just to remove it as a block. I can then use a scalpel and a file again just to finish it off and smooth it down, ready to fit onto the hip piece. Now you could use the razor saw to cut all the way through if you wished. I've just finished it off with the snips here just for speed. A quick sand afterwards will flatten off all the rough edges that are there. Okay, so the next components I'm going to look at is the arm sprue. I'm going to start by simply snipping it in half, just so we've got smaller components to work with. The next stage is to remove the thin runners from the arms. Okay, we'll just snip those off at both ends and then cut the sprue down. Following on from that, I'm just going to use the snips just to cut the block off. And then we'll go in with a scalpel and a file afterwards just to smooth this area off and finish it ready for attaching to the body. Same process with both arms. Again, just remove the thin runner, trim the sprue down, snip the block off. Okay, so we're now going to work on cleaning up the vehicle's accessory sprue. You'll notice there's a small air bubble there. That's not standard for this, it's just a pre-production casting, so we have to fill those things in. I'm just going to start by snipping off all these components from the sprue. Okay, Okay, so the first piece we're going to work on here is the pistons for the back of the knees. We're going to snip these along the lower line here and the upper line here, but first we're going to remove the outer sprue. Now the outer sprue is just to help with the casting process. It is just rubbish at the end of the day, so just cut that off, put it to one side. You can use it on your bases for a bit of texture, or just throw it away if you need to. Okay, the reason for removing the outer sprue is so you don't put any unnecessary flex into the components and then cause the pistons themselves to snap. That's why we remove the outer sprue first and then work our way onto the actual pistons themselves. So moving back to the rotary cannon, we're just going to snip the sprue off at the bottom there. Again, finish with a sanding stick and a scalpel later on. And then we'll get the gun shield. We'll just run a scalpel along the straight edge. And this score will allow us just to snap the piece cleanly away. The corners will then just be finished off by cutting them away with these snips. Moving on to assembling the Imperator, on the knee sections we've got the pistons. We used a 1.8mm drill bit on the lower section and a 2.1mm drill bit on the upper section. These are both drilled out to allow the pistons to fit. Now the legs have been pre-posed via the hip section to a walking gait. You could cut these and repose the model if you wished. So on the torso and the arms and the hip section, I'm just going to be using a 1mm drill bit to put some holes in, using a pin vise. I'll then put some brass rod into these. All this just helps strengthen the model and support it while it's glued together. Obviously you're going to be handling these figures a lot when you're gaming, so you don't want them falling to pieces on you. Okay, so now that we've got all the holes drilled out, we can start fitting the brass rod. We'll just give it a push in, check the depth, cut it off to the required length, and then test fit it to the other components. Once we're happy with that, we can then glue the brass rod into position. In this case I've glued it in on the lower hip section and then into the arm sections. By doing it this way round, I can test fit the other sections fit okay, and just have a play about getting the general pose of the miniature right. Once I'm finally happy, I'll glue it all together. So here we see the fully assembled Imperator Mecha. On the left arm there you'll notice that the rotary cannon has been glued to the outside. On the right arm the shield has been attached, and to the torso the gun camera has been attached. This figure's been mounted on a 60mm round base. This isn't not included with the kit. I've just textured that with a little bit of sand and gravel to help finish the model.